Donald Trump won't take over the presidency for another 2 months. But Xi Jinping is not waiting that long. He's already thrown down the gauntlet by inaugurating a port in America's backyard, in the South American country of Peru. The US military is worried that China may use it for spying for military purposes. So how will Donald Trump respond to this challenge? We'll discuss that, although we cannot be sure because with Trump you never know. Look at his latest move, an outreach to Iran. Reports say Elon Musk had a secret meeting with the Iranian envoy, and Trump's team has not denied it. In Bangladesh, as Hindus continue to face attacks, the Yunus government is dropping the pretense of protecting them. They apparently want to drop the word secularism from their constitution. In Pakistan, no takers for the cash-bleeding national carrier. We'll tell you what Islamabad's new plan is. Also, why Prime Minister Modi is going to Nigeria, how South Africa is trying to smoke out illegal immigrants from gold mines, why Kim Jong-un wants North Korea to mass-produce suicide drones, why New Zealand is making news for a dance in their parliament, and what is banana phobia. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Drama continues over next year's Champions Trophy. Pakistan forced to cancel the trophy tour planned in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. This comes after the Indian Cricket Board raised objections to the itinerary. The tournament is set to be held in Pakistan early next year. India successfully tests the latest Pinaka system. The advanced weapons system completes the guided flight test. The Pinaka system is India's first major defense export. Armenia has already placed the first order. Now France has also shown interest in the advanced rocket system. A senior Hamas official says that the group is ready for a ceasefire in Gaza, urging US President-elect Donald Trump to pressure Israel to end the aggression. Hamas says its main demands for the ceasefire remain the same: Israel's military withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and exchanging Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. A big win for the Sri Lankan president. His leftist coalition scores a landslide victory in the snap parliamentary elections. Anura Dissanayake swept the presidential election in September and immediately called for polls months ahead of schedule. The president's plan to secure parliamentary backing for his agenda was vindicated today. The UK scrambles jets to monitor a Russian military plane over the North Sea. The aircraft was flying close to the UK's airspace. Incidents involving Russian and Western aircraft have increased in recent months. Earlier this week, the British Navy shadowed Russian military vessels passing through the English Channel. And the US will award TSMC more than $6 billion in direct funding. This is to help the Taiwanese chip giant build plants on American soil. The announcement comes before Donald Trump takes office. During his election campaign, Trump had criticized the CHIPS Act, which aims to strengthen the US semiconductor industry. Tonight, we begin with the Pacific Summit in Peru. Leaders from 21 countries are attending, but the world's focus is on two of them. Xi Jinping and Joe Biden, the presidents of China and the United States, they will meet tomorrow, Saturday, turning Peru into the latest arena for this great power rivalry. And it comes amid a churn in Washington, D.C. As Trump prepares to take the presidency, Xi Jinping has made a power move. He's widening China's footprint in the Pacific. So America now faces a new challenge in the region. China has built a new port in Peru, a massive deep water port. Beijing has invested more than $1 billion in this project. Today, Xi Jinping inaugurated it from Lima, the Peruvian capital. He got a grand red carpet reception. Leading the welcome party was Peru's president, Dina Boluarte. Just a few blocks away from this ceremony, a completely different story was playing out. Anti-government protesters were clashing with the police. The leader of Peru, President Boluarte, is a deeply unpopular leader. Peruvians see her as corrupt. Her approval ratings stand at just 4%. 4%. There are calls for her impeachment. So Peruvians are taking to the streets. They're challenging the government and trying to disrupt the summit of Pacific leaders. Of course, none of that matters to Xi Jinping. He completely ignored the protest and he hailed the port's opening.
Today, the port of Chancay is becoming the new starting point of the Inca ancient road in the new era. From Chancay to Shanghai, what we are witnessing is not only the Belt and Road Initiative taking root and flourishing in Peru, but also the birth of a new maritime land corridor between Asia and Latin America and the Caribbean.
This is the port that the Chinese president was talking about, the Chancay port. It is on the Pacific Ocean, about 80 kilometers north of Lima. This port is part of Xi Jinping's Silk Route, an expansion of the Belt and Road project. And the pretext remains the same: trade, movement of goods, and more investment. That is what China is selling. Peru sees the Chancay port as a strategic export hub, one that can connect South America to Asia and speed up trade. The local press is celebrating the project. They're reporting big numbers to showcase the potential of this port. Like $4.5 billion in annual revenue, more than 8,000 direct jobs, and a big fall in logistics costs. They say shipment costs to China will drop by 20%. The first ship will set sail next week. It will carry Peruvian fruit to China. But that's not even the real story here. Xi Jinping is sending a significant message to the world. He turned today's event into a massive PR exercise, both for the Chinese regime and for its Belt and Road Initiative. Of course, the Americans are not amused, given that all of this is happening in their backyard. A former American general has raised an alarm. Her name is Laura Richardson. She retired this month as chief of the US Southern Command. This is a US military command. It covers Latin America and the Caribbean. The American military fears that the PLA could use this port in Peru. The PLA is the People's Liberation Army, that is the Chinese army. The worry is that Chinese ships could dock here at this port and that this facility could be used for spying. In fact, let me quote from what General Richardson has said. It could be used as a dual-use facility. It's a deep water port. The Navy could use it absolutely. This is a playbook that we've seen play out in other places, not just in Latin America. Dual-use facilities, civilian ports for military use, Chinese spy ships. You've heard all these phrases before. And not just from the US. India too has raised similar concerns on multiple occasions. India has repeatedly called out China for sending spy ships to the Indian Ocean. Now Peru and the Pacific face the same risks. Chancay is similar to the Hambantota port of Sri Lanka. So the US has issued new warnings. The State Department has released a statement asking Latin American states to be vigilant. Meanwhile, China seems to be doubling down. It is expanding its network of ports. We're waiting to see how Donald Trump tackles this threat, because China's moves in the Pacific are an open challenge to him. Xi Jinping has flown halfway across the world to inaugurate a port just before Donald Trump's inauguration. We'll be tracking his response. Back in the United States, it was another action-packed day with Donald Trump picking his cabinet and the media and critics shaking their heads in disapproval. The latest to be named was his health secretary. The health secretary, that's the health minister of the United States, and the name is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He will head the U.S. Health Department. It's the largest department in the U.S. government. It has a budget of $700 billion. With 11 agencies falling under it and roughly 65,000 employees. RFK Jr. will control all of that.
Another one who's another great mind and a great guy and so popular, and I think he's right. He wants to make people healthy. It's driven him pretty wild over the last number of years, and the Democrats didn't treat him well. He was doing fantastically well, and I think they came out with some rule that you had to do this, Mike. You had to get 70 or 75% of the vote to qualify to be in the primary. That was a pretty tough thing to get. And he was doing incredibly well, and he decided he can't do it, went independent. Now he's with us all the way. And today I nominated him for, I guess, if you like health and if you like people that live a long time, it's the most important position, RFK Jr. Bobby? Good. And I just looked at the news reports. People like you, Bobby. Don't get too popular, Bobby.
That's Trump for you. The surname gives it away. RFK Jr. belongs to American political royalty, the Kennedys. He's the nephew of John F. Kennedy, America's 35th president, and the son of Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. His family is closely associated with the Democrats. Last year, RFK Jr. ran for president from the Democratic Party. He challenged the sitting president, Joe Biden. That did not go too well. So he suspended his campaign and then ran again as an independent. But in August, that bid too came to an end. He dropped out of the race and endorsed Donald Trump. It was a show of loyalty, and it was clear that RFK Jr. expected something in return. In October, Trump gave a hint on what that could be.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he came in. And he's going to help make America healthy again. And now he's a great guy, and he really means it. He wants to do some things, and we're going to let him go to it. I just said, but, Bobby, leave the oil to me.
Make America healthy again. Trump's team dismissed this. They said that he's not getting the top job. But here we are a month later, and RFK Jr. has the same job that Donald Trump promised him, the job of America's health secretary. And this appointment had an immediate reaction. Vaccine shares tanked. Pfizer, Moderna, Novavax are companies that make vaccines. All of their shares dropped by over 2%. That's because RFK Jr. is a renowned vaccine skeptic. He's criticized childhood vaccines. He says vaccines cause autism. He's questioned vaccine efficacy. He's also said that the Wuhan virus affected only some races. So obviously, pharma companies are wary. Will the new health secretary take away vaccines? That's the question on everyone's minds. And this is how RFK Jr. answered it.
I'm going to require, first of all, anybody who wants to take a vaccine, I'm not going to get in their way. If you want a vaccine, or if you want to vaccinate your children, those vaccines will be available.
So now he says vaccines are safe, but it has failed to calm the stock market. Here's what else that he wants to do. He wants to cap the price of prescription drugs, make them affordable. He wants to remove processed food from school lunches. And he wants to tackle the fentanyl crisis, the drug crisis in America. If he is able to do all of this, it will be a big service to the US. These proposals may also have bipartisan appeal, so both Democrats and Republicans could support such moves. Now, RFK Jr. was not the only appointment in the last 24 hours. Trump is recruiting a lot of people, and they all have two things in common. One, they are Trump loyalists, and two, they're being called controversial choices. Take the Deputy Attorney General, for example, Todd Blanche. He is the lawyer who fought Trump's hush money case. Like I said, controversial. Also, do remember that none of these are done deals. These appointees will have to be approved by the Senate. Shouldn't be a problem in most cases, unless the Republicans oppose them. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is enjoying the spotlight. He gave a speech in Florida, his first since the election night. It was almost like another victory lap.
We're going to work on Middle East, and we're going to work very hard on Russia and Ukraine. It's got to stop. Russia and Ukraine's got to stop. Thousands and thousands, I saw a report today, thousands of people over the last 3 days were killed.
Those are Trump's big promises. His team cheered him on. And this event had a special guest, Javier Milei, the president of Argentina. He was present at the event, the Florida event, along with Elon Musk. That makes him the first world leader Trump has met since being elected.
This has been the greatest political comeback in history, defying the entire political establishment, even at the risk of his own life. And thanks to this, today the world is a much better place. Today the winds of freedom are blowing much stronger.
Javier, I'd like to congratulate you on the job you've done for Argentina. Your speech was beautiful, but the job you've done is incredible. Make Argentina great again. You know, MAGA. He's a MAGA person.
So a lot of exuberance in the Trump camp. But on the other side of the political aisle, the picture looks bleak. The Democrats have been hammered. They lost the White House, they lost the Senate, and now they've lost the House of Representatives too. The Republicans control the trifecta, which gives them enormous power to push their policies and legislation. And the Democrats are worried about this, especially about the 22nd Amendment. What's the 22nd Amendment? It limits a US president to only 2 terms. So you cannot be president for more than 2 terms. That is the law. Earlier this week, Donald Trump spoke about it. He said he won't run in 2028 unless the Republicans did something about it. Well, Trump said it as a joke, but the Democrats don't find it funny. They are in fact alarmed. They plan on filing a new motion. And what does it say? Nothing new. It will just formalize what's already in the US Constitution, that Donald Trump cannot run for a 3rd term. That's how spooked they are. In the meantime, the Harris campaign has been busy. They're talking about recounting votes. Kamala Harris received $1 billion in donations. This money went to her victory fund. But as it turned out, there was no victory. So now the money will be redirected. Her team says it will be used for recounting efforts. What does that mean?
So we're here to speak.
They did not specify. Where do they want a recount? Why do they want a recount? Are they planning to challenge the vote count? They have given no details. But if they plan to pull this stunt, it's a bad idea. Because look at the numbers. It was a landslide for Trump. He swept the swing states. He won all 7 of them. He won a total of 312 electoral votes, which is way more than the magic number of 270. So this was not a close election. Plus, Harris has already conceded within hours of the result coming out. There is no point talking about a recount now. The Democrats should find something better to do with their time and money. When it comes to Donald Trump, expect the unexpected. It's one of the reasons that world leaders are wary of him. They just can't predict what he will do. It's why Europe is holding frantic meetings right now. It's why NATO members are rushing to increase defense spending, and why China is preparing for an all-out trade war, because no one knows what happens next. Not America's friends, and not even their enemies. Take a look at this report. It came out yesterday. It says that a secret meeting took place earlier this week between tech tycoon Elon Musk and Iran's ambassador to the United Nations. As you know, Musk is now a top advisor to Donald Trump. The two have been inseparable lately. Musk has been a constant presence at Trump's side, so much so that Trump even joked about it earlier this week. On Wednesday, he said that Elon won't go home. Those were his words. And that he couldn't get rid of him. Trump said all of this in jest, but it underlines just how close the two are. And now we hear that Musk met a senior Iranian official. What does that tell you? Would Elon Musk do this without Trump's backing? Of course not. Which means that Trump has opened back-channel talks with the Iranians. And he's not even denying this. His team was asked about the meeting. Listen to what his communications director said. We do not comment on reports of private meetings that did or did not occur. That's practically an admission. So what were these talks that did or did not occur about? Apparently, it was a discussion on how to diffuse tensions between Iran and the US. The first move came from Musk. He is said to have requested the meeting. The venue was picked by the Iranian ambassador. We don't know what it was because the location of the meeting has not been disclosed. But we can tell you that it happened on Monday. The meeting happened on Monday. It went on for more than 1 hour. And the Iranians have described it as, and I'm quoting again, they've called the meeting positive and good news, which may sound generic. But if you follow US-Iran equations, you know that it is a big deal, especially given the involvement of Trump. Because think about it. Think about Trump's usual stance when it comes to Iran. In 2018, he tore up the Iran nuclear deal. It was a multilateral deal. It was a deal signed by multiple world powers, but Trump single-handedly killed it. This deal basically eased some pressure on Tehran. In exchange, Tehran promised to curb its nuclear program. That was the arrangement. Trump unilaterally withdrew from it, calling it a horrible deal for America. After that, he began to ramp up the pressure. He imposed a number of new sanctions on Iran and practically outlawed their oil exports. It plunged Iran into an even deeper economic crisis. And to top it off, Trump killed one of their top generals, Qasem Soleimani. Trump ordered a strike on Soleimani in 2020. The general was killed at that time. He was killed, and US-Iran ties cratered after that to depths not thought possible. That's what Trump did to Iran during his first term, and he was expected to follow the same strategy again this time, especially considering his close ties with Israel and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. The world expected Trump and Netanyahu to unite and tighten the screws on Iran. But as I said in the beginning, with Trump, expect the unexpected. He has initiated a conversation with Iran. It may or may not amount to much. It may or may not bring peace to West Asia. But the outreach alone is big news. It may give hope to the Iranians and sleepless nights to the Israelis. So that's one key point to note, Trump's outreach. That's one big takeaway. The second highlight is the man chosen for this outreach. Trump did not go through the usual channels, no diplomat or security agency. He gave this job to Elon Musk. Now, part of this could be necessity. You see, Iran was furious with Trump for tearing up the nuclear deal, so they banned direct talks with the Americans. The order came from their supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. This ban has been in place since 2018, no direct talks between Iran and the US. So perhaps Trump could only reach out via a private citizen, like Elon Musk. But we know that that's just a technicality. We know that Musk was chosen because of his growing clout. He's weighing in on everything, including Trump's cabinet appointments. He was sitting in on Trump's calls with world leaders like Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. When Zelensky spoke to Trump after the election win, Musk was part of the call. At one point, Trump reportedly handed the phone to Musk. That should tell you about his growing stature. So it's no wonder that he's the one initiating talks with Iran. It is evident that Trump trusts him. This may not sit well with the Republican Party. The politicians may have expected that they would lead important missions like this one. But again, I repeat myself, this is Donald Trump. So they, like the rest of us, should just expect the unexpected.
Sounds like we're here to number one responsibility.
Our next story is about Bangladesh. It's been over 100 days since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, more than 100 days since she fled the country, and an interim government took over. It is led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. And what have we seen in all this time? What has this new unelected interim government achieved? They haven't called elections yet, and they haven't been able to stop the violence. In other words, Bangladesh is still busy with revenge, not progress. In fact, they seem to be going backwards. Bangladesh's Attorney General wants to amend the constitution. Among other things, he wants to remove the word secular. Here's what he said. 90% of Bangladesh's population is Muslim, so the constitution should remove the word secularism and emphasize unwavering faith in Allah. But what happens to people who believe in other faiths, in different gods, like the Hindu community? What happens to them? They're already under attack. They've been facing a purge ever since the new interim government took over. Between August 4th and August 20th, there were more than 2,000 incidents of communal violence, mostly targeting Hindus. They were killed and raped. There was vandalism and arson. The Hindu community was targeted across the country. All this happened in the first 15 days of the new regime, and they kept either justifying it or trying to sweep it under the carpet or pushing back. The Yunus regime wants the world to deny the evidence that is right before our eyes. First, it was their home advisor, Jahangir Alam Chaudhry. He accused Indian media of spreading fake news about the violence against Hindus. He said Bangladesh plans to protest this. Then came their information and broadcasting advisor, Nahid Islam. He said that India has no reason to be concerned, that New Delhi should not express concerns about Dhaka's internal matters, and that Bangladesh's minorities are safe. That is what the interim government is saying. At the same time, their Attorney General wants to remove secularism from the Constitution. Do they think this will help protect minorities? By effectively and formally making them second-class citizens. You've already seen 2,000 attacks on Hindus in just 15 days. The Hindus keep protesting, asking for an end to the violence and discrimination, and this is what Dhaka comes up with. Officially end the country's commitment to secularism. They weren't doing a good job upholding it anyway. Now they want to drop the act altogether. Muhammad Yunus wants to pretend that everything is fine, that nothing bad will happen. But the reality is that the Hindu people are scared, and with good reason. Every time there's been political turmoil in Bangladesh, the Hindu community has come under attack. They were targeted during the 1971 Liberation War. Then in 1992, when the Babri Masjid chaos was unfolding in India, and then again in 2001, this time because of an election. In 2001, there were more than 18,000 incidents of violence against Hindus in Bangladesh. 18,000. It was after Sheikh Hasina lost the election, and now she's been ousted again without an election this time. So can you blame the Hindus for being on edge? And can you blame India for being worried? The interim government can try and pretend that everything is normal, but history suggests that extreme vigilance is required.
जब हिंदुस्तान मिले हिंदुस्तान से
Visit your nearest JK Tyre Steel Wheel store today.
झंझनाहट से जल्द आराम पाएं सेंसोडाइन रैपिड रिलीफ के साथ।
यारो इस बार बिजली का बिल 8,000 आया है।
मेरा 10,000।
मेरा 5,000।
इतना? तो अब क्या भरेंगे? सिर्फ 0 रुपए।
हम किसानों के लिए शून्य बिजली बिल योजना है ना।
पर ये सरकार ही बदल गई और ये योजना ही बंद हो गई तो?
इसीलिए भाजपा महायुति को ही वोट देंगे। भाजपा महायुति है तो हम किसानों को सहारा है।
वो मिस्टर विकास की फाइल आप पॉलिसी बाजार। मैम, आपका हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्लेम अप्रूव हो गया है। अब आप सर को घर ले जा सकती हैं।
क्लेम के टाइम पे हमेशा आपकी हेल्प को तैयार। पॉलिसी बाजार 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 390 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
पता ही नहीं चलता ये शादी के रंग आप पे कब चढ़ गए, कब चुपके से आप एक मान्यवर बन गए। आप कब बन रहे हैं मान्यवर?
अच्छा बच्चों, बड़े होके क्या बनोगे?
I wanna be a footballer, फिर कोच, me a car designer, then an artist. अंकल और आप?
मैं तो बिजनेसमैन हूँ।
पर उसके बाद?
मतलब
आप बूढ़े होके क्या बनोगे?
अपनी खुशियों वाली रिटायर्ड लाइफ की प्लानिंग करो आज से विद आदित्य बिरला सन लाइफ इंश्योरेंस।
डीजे,
आप बूढ़े होके क्या बनोगे?
अरे ओ शांता, कहाँ चली घूमने? फिर से मायके? पति अच्छा है तुम्हारा?
सिर्फ पति ही नहीं, सरकार भी अच्छी है हमारी। अब महिलाओं को एसटी टिकट पे 50% छूट मिली है।
क्या बात कर रही हो?
हाँ।
पर कभी सोचा है तुमने, ये योजना बंद हुई तो दूसरी सरकार आई तो?
इसीलिए मेरा वोट भाजपा महायुति को। भाजपा महायुति है तो महिलाओं को एसटी टिकट पर 50% छूट है।
अरे ऋषि, आज स्कूल नहीं गए?
3 महीने से फीस नहीं भर पाई तो निकाल दिया स्कूल ने। कहीं आपके बाद आपके बच्चों के सपने न टूट जाएं। आज ही लीजिए पॉलिसी बाजार पे 2 करोड़ का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस, सिर्फ 690 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
Mama told me to be loved.
Pakistan is selling its national carrier, at least it's trying to, and not seeing much success. We're talking about PIA, the Pakistan International Airlines. It's been bleeding money for some time, more than $7 billion in the last 10 years. For a broke government, that's unsustainable. So Islamabad wants to sell it. The problem is there are no takers. Until now, Pakistan has received just one bid, and it was way below the asking price. So the government has rejected it. Now they're hoping that their Arab friends will rescue them. Pakistan is said to be in talks with Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Our next report brings you all the details.
Cash-strapped Pakistan is looking to raise money. Of course, what better way than to sell state assets? A prominent item on the list is the PIA, or the Pakistan International Airlines. It is Islamabad's national carrier and it's a loss-making entity. The airline doesn't have any money. In 2022, the PIA was in the red. They lost $291 million. And the losses aren't just recent. Since 2012, PIA's losses are worth $7 billion. Its flights are cancelled. It can't buy fuel. The aircraft are dilapidated. They are overstaffed. And the 7,000 employees haven't received a salary this month. And also there are unions. In 2016, Pakistan tried to privatize the PIA, but it didn't work out. There was a strike by the employees that led to flights being cancelled for a week. So the government had to abandon this plan. But this time they are steadfast. They want a loan from the International Monetary Fund or the IMF. But it has a few conditions. One of them is to end subsidizing loss-making entities, also known as the PIA. So Pakistan is desperate to get rid of it. After all, they need that loan. So they tried to offer a sweet deal, putting a debt-free PIA under the hammer. But even that did not work. The government wanted to sell 60% stake in the PIA. The minimum price set was 85 billion Pakistani rupees, which is more than $300 million. But only one bid came. It was from the real estate development company Blue World City. They bid only 10 billion Pakistani rupees. That's around $36 million. So the government wasn't happy. They rejected that bid and Islamabad turned to what they do best, looking for another bailout, this time from their friends in the Gulf. Reports suggest 2 potential buyers have emerged, Qatar and Abu Dhabi. The sale would happen under a government-to-government agreement. Leading this sale is the SIFC, the Strategic Investment Facilitation Council. It's a new body supported by the Pakistani military. They are inviting expressions of interest from international investors till the end of this month. That's the official statement. But behind the scenes, talks have moved further ahead. Reports suggest Qatar has expressed interest. It wants to buy PIA for $2 billion. Privatization Minister Fawad Hassan Fawad has already held talks with Qatari officials. Another report says Pakistan is keen to expedite negotiations with both Qatar and Abu Dhabi by establishing pre-decided terms. So the talks are underway. The Pakistani army is actively pushing for it. And the government is willing to offer concessions. Nothing is final as of now, but Pakistan is desperate to see its national carrier fly away.
Prime Minister Modi is travelling to Nigeria. He starts a three-nation tour on Saturday. Nigeria is the first stop, followed by Guyana and finally Brazil, which is hosting the G20 summit this year. Now, Guyana and Brazil, as you know, are in South America, and Nigeria is in Africa. So this stop may seem a bit off, but it's deliberate and significant. This is the first time in 17 years that an Indian Prime Minister is visiting Nigeria. There are 54 countries in Africa. Nigeria has the biggest population and the second largest economy. It is also a strategic partner of India. There is a growing economic relationship. Both sides are expanding ties in areas like energy and defense. More than 200 Indian companies have invested in Nigeria. Their investment is worth over $27 billion. Then there's the Diaspora Connect. About 50,000 Indians or people of Indian origin live in Nigeria. They're well respected for their business acumen. Typically, these areas shape a bilateral relationship. So India and Nigeria have the right ingredients. And the roots of their friendship go deep. Both nations are former British colonies. They face similar challenges. They have large populations, growing developmental needs, and mutual concerns on issues like corruption and terrorism. This opens the door for collaboration. India has the right credentials to be a reliable partner for Nigeria. This country is a major hub for petroleum products, and India is among the largest buyers. In 2022, India imported around $10 billion worth of crude from Nigeria, so they can build on this trade relationship. Plus, there is goodwill. Last year, the African Union joined the G20. It was a proposal floated by New Delhi. India was the G20 president. Prime Minister Modi had led the effort to build consensus. He secured the votes from G20 members and facilitated the inclusion of the African Union. The mission was a success. It boosted India's engagement with Africa. Now, New Delhi can take it forward. Nigeria faces severe economic challenges. It's being called their worst economic crisis in a generation. There is widespread hardship. Inflation crossed 30% this year. Their currency, the naira, has collapsed. There is a massive debt burden. Nigeria's external debt has crossed $42 billion, which is a significant sum. The economic crisis has led to civil unrest. Nigeria's president is Bola Tinubu. He took office last year. He took some tough calls to fix the economy, like ending petroleum subsidies and a large-scale purge of government officials. It caused more pain. Now, President Tinubu says that the worst is over, but to build long-term resilience, they will need the help of partners like India. India is in a position to help. The other area for collaboration could be defense. Nigeria is a potential market for India and its defense exporters. And India can offer small arms and ammunition, armored vehicles, even light combat aircraft like the Tejas. Earlier this year, India sent a delegation to Nigeria, so preliminary talks have already happened. The Nigerians are ready to work with the Indian defense industry. Prime Minister Modi's visit could accelerate these efforts. He's expected to touch down tomorrow. We will keep track for you. Our next story comes from South Africa. An operation is underway in the country. It's called Close the Hole. The targets are illegal miners. You see, South Africa has a lot of gold mines. Some of them stop becoming profitable, so companies abandon them. That is when illegal miners sweep in. They try to find leftover gold. There are thousands of these illegal miners all over South Africa. Many of them are also illegal immigrants from nearby countries. So South Africa is trying to crack down with an operation called Close the Hole. They're shutting food and water supplies to these illegal miners. The idea, and I'm quoting, is to smoke them out. Here's a report.
South Africa is conducting a crackdown. It's going after illegal miners, colloquially known as Zama Zamas, after a phrase in the Zulu language which means taking a chance. These illegal miners take a chance to find gold, leftover gold in abandoned mines. South Africa is a resource-rich country. It was once the world's largest producer of gold, but now a lot of its mines are depleted. Some mines have been shut down by the companies that own them, because it's no longer profitable to commercially extract gold there. So the mines are boarded up and abandoned. That is where the Zama Zamas come in. They go into the shuttered mines, often for months on end, hoping to find gold that the companies left behind. They usually don't find a lot. Sometimes it's just gold dust. Imagine staying underground for months in an abandoned mine, often filled with dangerous gases, just to find gold dust and eke out an existence. But the South African government is not sympathetic to their plight. It's fed up with the Zama Zamas and it has decided to crack down. The government launched Operation Close the Hole a few weeks ago. They decided to cut supplies, cut the food and water that was going into the mines. One example is a gold mine in Stilfontein, in South Africa's northwest province. There are reportedly about 4,000 Zama Zamas inside the Stilfontein gold mine, and they're slowly being starved and dying of thirst. So far, about 1,000 people have emerged from the mine, and at least one dead body. The miners were arrested when they emerged. Many of them are illegal immigrants from nearby countries like Zimbabwe and Lesotho, so they will most likely be deported. That is why many don't want to come out. They are risking their lives by staying inside, so they aren't kicked out of South Africa. The families of the miners have gathered outside the mine. They want the South African government to stop the blockade and help them rescue the miners instead.
We only want the police to help us so that we can take those people from underground so that they can come outside, because there they've been trapped without food, without water, without nothing. So they must come out, all of them, so that they can be safe, they can get food.
But the government is in no mood to help.
We're not sending help to criminals. We're going to smoke them out. They will come out. We're not sending help to criminals. Criminals are not to be helped. Criminals are to be persecuted.
The minister's reaction has led to public anger. She's a member of the African National Congress. Some people are protesting against her and the party, saying it's the ANC that should be smoked out.
If you had listened to the minister yesterday, the arrogance and the irresponsible utterances that she did.
But the South African government is defiant. They say that illegal mining costs them millions of dollars every year, so they're sticking with Operation Close the Hole, despite the human cost.
Now let's talk about drones. They're changing modern warfare. Earlier you needed men on the ground, now drones are replacing them. And North Korea wants to ride this trend. They're building suicide drones. A test was conducted on Friday. It was overseen by Kim Jong-un himself. Apparently, he liked what he saw, because this is what he said afterwards. Make more of them. Make more suicide drones. Set up a serial production system. Basically, Kim wants to mass produce such drones as early as possible. The suicide drones of North Korea made headlines in August too. That's when Pyongyang first unveiled them. They're also known as loitering munitions. They are unmanned. They can hit both land and sea targets. So basically, they act like guided missiles. And right now, they are in demand because of the two big wars, Ukraine and West Asia. Drones play an important role in both these conflicts and many others too. These are low-cost weapons. They can take out enemy targets like tanks, and they save human resources. No wonder they're fast becoming the world's weapon of choice. Kim Jong-un understands this. He said the use of drones is accelerating, so he wants to mass produce them. And it is in line with the global trend. The global military drone market is worth $15 billion as of now, and it's growing. So by 2030, it could be worth $40 billion. That's more than double. And which countries are leading this race? Number one is the United States. It has over 13,000 military drones. The US is also a top seller. Then we have China, another big player, especially when it comes to the export of armed drones. Like most things Chinese, their drones are also cheap, so more countries buy them. Turkey is also up there. It has shaped itself as a major drone power. A Turkish company called Bekar has exported drones to 32 countries. Their best seller is the Bayraktar TB2 drone. 31 countries are using it. Israel is another major player. In fact, it's the world's top supplier of suicide drones. So long story short, drones are in demand across the board. In 2020, Armenia fought a war with Azerbaijan. It was over a region called Nagorno-Karabakh. And Baku used drones in this conflict. In 2022 came the Ukraine war. Drones found recognition here. They tracked enemy forces, they surveilled front lines and took down military equipment. In Gaza and Lebanon, drones were used for military operations in civilian areas. What does all of this tell you? The era of drones is just getting started, and Kim Jong-un wants to make the most of it. He's just sealed a military pact with Russia. Moscow is now sharing defense technology with North Korea. Pyongyang is sending weapons to Russia. It is also deploying troops. So suicide drones looks like the obvious next step. And why just Russia? You see, the West does not dominate the drone market. The US may be a key player, but there are many others, like China and Turkey, who command a big share. All of them can manufacture drones. All of them provide access to drone technology. North Korea hopes to join their ranks and sell weapons to more conflict zones. There's little that the West can do to stop this. It's as if drones have become the ultimate equalizers, weapons that do not discriminate between military superpowers and isolated regimes. Kim's ambitions highlight this new reality, making the world an even more unpredictable battlefield. Now let's turn our attention to New Zealand, where chaos erupted in the parliament after a bill was proposed. It was followed by fiery debates, insults, and a haka. A haka, as some of you would know, is a traditional dance. It is performed by the Maori community. The Maori are the indigenous people of New Zealand. In 1840, they signed a treaty with the British Crown. The treaty is New Zealand's founding document. It has helped the indigenous Maori and European settlers coexist. This treaty also gives some special privileges to Maori to redress historical wrongs by the colonizers. But some argue that this is discriminatory. So they proposed a bill to alter the treaty, and this has stoked tensions in New Zealand. Our next report tells you more.
New Zealand's parliament was temporarily suspended yesterday after Maori lawmaker Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark stood up, tore her copy of a proposed legislation and started performing the haka. She performed a haka in January as well, when she made history by becoming the youngest member of the parliament. But this time, she was also joined by other opposition members. Maori are the indigenous people of New Zealand. Haka is a traditional group dance in the community. And this time it was a demonstration of their anger and fear over a bill which aims to reinterpret the country's founding treaty with its indigenous people. It's called the Treaty of Waitangi. It was signed in 1840 by Maori chiefs and the British Crown. It laid the framework for coexistence between the indigenous Maori and the European settlers and is considered New Zealand's founding document. Even today, it forms the basis of the country's laws and policies, but it is also instrumental in upholding Maori rights and in redressing historical wrongs against Maori by the colonizers. So the principles of the treaty have been evolving over the decades, progressively expanding the rights and privileges of the Maori people. The Maori make up about 20% of New Zealand's population. They remain disadvantaged compared to the general population. They experience more material hardship. They have worse health and education indicators. There is a 7-year gap in life expectancy, and they are incarcerated at much higher rates than the population at large.
Objection.
Yet, some argue that the treaty discriminates against non-Indigenous citizens. This includes ACT, the most right-wing member of New Zealand's Conservative coalition government. ACT wants equal rights. It claims that special provisions for Maori have been divisive for the society. So this month it introduced a bill.
Shame on you, David Seymour.
The division that you are seeing was not caused by this bill. It's been built up over decades during which New Zealanders have come to regard themselves as based on ancestry or one side of a partnership instead of New Zealanders. And what's worse, successive governments have encouraged that division. The division is there whether this bill is here to reveal it or not.
But the bill has already stoked tensions in the country.
And I denounce this foul attempt to rewrite the constitutional framework of this nation simply because the Prime Minister is too weak to stop the dangerous extremism of the ACT Party.
The National Party, which is the main centre-right party in the governing coalition, has distanced itself from the bill.
Our position on why we don't support it is very clear. Treaty issues are complex. They've been negotiated, debated, discussed over 184 years. It's simplistic to assume that you can, through the stroke of a pen, resolve all of that.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
After the first reading, lawmakers have voted to advance the bill, but Prime Minister Luxon wants the bill to be voted down in the second reading. So the bill is unlikely to pass. But this is not enough to placate the Maori. At least 10,000 people are on a 10-day hikoi, meaning a peaceful protest march. They are walking 450 kilometers to reach the capital of Wellington, after which they will stage a big rally. So the message is simple. The Maori are not going down without a fight, or in this case, a fiery haka.
Co-presented by JK Tyre Puncture Guard. Say goodbye to flat tires.
जब हिंदुस्तान मिले हिंदुस्तान से
Visit your nearest JK Tyre Steel Wheel store today.
अरे ऋषि, आज स्कूल नहीं गए?
3 महीने से फीस नहीं भर पाई तो निकाल दिया स्कूल ने। कहीं आपके बाद आपके बच्चों के सपने न टूट जाएं। आज ही लीजिए पॉलिसी बाजार पे 2 करोड़ का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस, सिर्फ 690 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
तुझे ऐसे कभी इमेजिन नहीं किया रे? मैंने भी। आप कब बन रहे हैं मान्यवर?
अरे ओ शांता, कहाँ चली घूमने? फिर से मायके? पति अच्छा है तुम्हारा?
सिर्फ पति ही नहीं, सरकार भी अच्छी है हमारी। अब महिलाओं को एसटी टिकट पे 50% छूट मिली है।
क्या बात कर रही हो?
हाँ।
पर कभी सोचा है तुमने, ये योजना बंद हुई तो दूसरी सरकार आई तो?
इसीलिए मेरा वोट भाजपा महायुति को। भाजपा महायुति है तो महिलाओं को एसटी टिकट पर 50% छूट है।
सर, आप बहुत लकी है कि आपके बेटे ने हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस और बाकी सारी फॉर्मेलिटीज टाइम से पूरी कर दी है।
मेरा बेटा?
तो फिर आप?
पॉलिसी बाजार।
क्लेम के टाइम पे हमेशा आपकी हेल्प को तैयार। पॉलिसी बाजार, 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 390 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
आप सब जानते हैं कांग्रेस का अगला सदर ही आजाद हिंदुस्तान पहला प्राइम मिनिस्टर बने। सबने एकमत होके सरदार पटेल को चुना।
इस पार्टी को, हम सबको सरदार की जरूरत है और देश को जवाहर की।
देखिए फ्रीडम एट मिडनाइट सोनी लिव पर।
यारो, इस बार बिजली का बिल 8,000 आया है।
तेरा 10,000।
मेरा 5,000।
इतना? तो अब
क्या भरेंगे? सिर्फ 0 रुपए।
हम किसानों के लिए शून्य बिजली बिल योजना है ना।
पर ये सरकार ही बदल गई और ये योजना ही बंद हो गई तो
इसीलिए भाजपा महायुति को ही वोट देंगे। भाजपा महायुति है तो हम किसानों को सहारा है।
The feelings take control. The feelings take control. Mama told me to be loved.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. An Israeli strike in Beirut levels an entire building within seconds. Climate activists protest against the presence of fossil fuel lobbyists at the COP29 by using a giant snake prop. And Kenyan villagers hit by drought resort to seaweed farming.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. The Oxford University is in the middle of a controversy, yet again. Why? Because its debating society, the Oxford Union, has been used as a platform to promote anti-Bharat rhetoric. A debate titled "This House Believes in an Independent State of Kashmir" has sparked off a firestorm. Is the Oxford University deliberately indulging in an anti-Bharat narrative? Is it pandering to a Pak-driven agenda? Oxford University's hypocrisy also has been laid bare. There have been protests to call off this debate back in 2022 when the Oxford Union had cancelled a debate when Pakistanis protested against the presence of filmmaker Vivek Agnihotri just because that was the time when the release of the Kashmir files had happened. Now, is the ISI's deep-rooted agenda playing out here? Is the Oxford Union playing proxy to Pakistan? Or is it being manifested via the CCP, driven of propaganda outfits that is their own culture center? So is there a larger narrative at play here where another inimical entity to Bharat is actually using this vassal state that the way it treats it today to try and create or foment this? Has the recent peaceful polls in Jammu and Kashmir unnerved Bharat's foes? Is Naya Jammu and Kashmir, post the abrogation of Article 370, choking Pak proxies? Are Bharat's haters trying to spread this agenda using foreign soil in a bid to undermine our nation's growth? Now, these are all questions that remain. But more importantly, under the garb of freedom of speech and expression, can a prestigious university and its students' union or union come out and try and create a conversation around a sovereign state of Bharat and try and talk about secession, openly talk about secession? How is that fair? Will they be all right if the IITs of our country, the IIMs of our country, the JNUs of our country, the Ashokas, and the other universities of our country were to have debates which talk about what about an independent Scotland or an independent Wales? Will these kind of questions and debates